Alright guys, now back with the dragons review. Just hitting on it really quickly, dragons are going to be one of the tribes that are out on December 3rd on the initial launch. With Beast, Quilver, Pirate, and Naga mechs. We just reviewed Nagas in the last video. These other four are going to be my priority, and then I'm going to gradually put out these other two just because they're going to be coming out a little bit later. So if we go to dragons. Main things with the dragons is the current meta really focuses on them being very trinket dependent. The way dragons had a lot of really good like start of turn effects that were having the different trinkets as a payoff for that. And it'll be interesting to see if they're able to maintain any type of power as like a scam class without trinkets. Mainly, the reason why I say they're very much like a scam class is a lot of the, I guess, like techs with them was getting a like divine shield and a ton of attack on them, and essentially every minion, even their like weakest one drops, were able to two from one, and then you would have a couple other big minions. So that's kind of my thought process. Let's start going through. First thing on one is there's only two dragons. They got rid of the I forget the one for, but upbeat front rake is just pretty much a auto pick 90% of the time. It's such a good like value minion, especially if you play a hero power that has a two cost turn three that you're able to um, not worry about not like having the option to sell off your one drop under three. But this is just such a solid unit, and it's really good to keep them around and really helps you start leaning into dragons early. Uh, Misfit Dragonling, this is another minion that's like, it's okay just to play. It's like solid stats. It helps you aggressively level, and that's something I really like to do with it, is try to level up quicker and make it so it has a higher potential of doing a 2-for-1 trade early on. Blaze Sky Ivan is just meh. Electric Synthesizer, kind of interesting that they're moving this down to 1, and they're also changing the effect a lot. So it's a battle cry and start a combat, give your other dragons 1/1. Definitely, I think the battle cry weakening is probably a little bit worse. And really, what you like doing with this was just playing it and selling it off and just being a lot of tempo. The fact that half of its ability now is in start of combat definitely makes it weaker. However, it does synergize a little bit with the dragon theme of start of combat dragons, and just kind of scrolling very quickly, stuff like Poet's still around, so I imagine start of combat dragons is going to be a thing. It's just going to be really hard to like. I don't think you ever keep a 1/1 buff going into the late game for that start of combat. Um, and one of the big payoffs for something like Synthesizer was Smuggler. Um, they're still leaving it as the 2/5 give 1 health. Where this is relevant is it used to be like a 2/3, but the health was permanent and would apply to like in combat. And so like that would have been a payoff for Synthesizer early. They're not doing that, and they're just leaving it as a 1 health. But this does make something like Synthesizer give your dragons instead of 1/1 1/2. This is also a payoff if like Caligos is still around. If we do a quick check. Caligos is buff, so we'll hit that later. But this is kind of like a like little bit like a mini brand if you find an early Caligos. Like it gives you a little bit of a payoff while you're trying to stabilize. Tavern tier 3, we get our first new dragon. Reverber Drake. Battlecry, cast Echoing Roar on a friendly dragon. If I remember, Echoing Roar is the spell that's like the battle, the give a friendly minion 2/2. So let me get back to dragons. So I guess if you look at this, like, what dragons are you going to be playing that you really want to keep around this early? Not a lot. Like, really, the big payoff for this is if you pay it on something like a poet, a hunter of gatherers. It looks like Nightbane's back, or like a Warpwing, something like that. I see this as like it's gonna be okay because it's like a 4/4 on its first turn and then becomes a 6/6. And it's because it's a battle cry, you play it on a minion and then you can still sell it out. So it's not terrible, but I don't imagine this being a great minion unless you have a good minion to play it on. What's also relevant is it has to be a dragon, so you can't just play it on a blind like I don't know, like we were just talking about gladiators in a previous video. You can't play this on like a gladiator. Um, Smolderwing Gardener is still around. This is the one that gives you the Smolder Wings, the 5 attack battle cry. What's relevant with this is it only costs 1 gold to do this effect because you get a second minion. Terragosa is still around, which is going to kind of play into some of the start of combats. I imagine like a very good start is going to be something like Front Drake. Ideally, you have a way to play like Whelp Smuggler and Synthesizer on turn 3. Turn 5, you get like a Terragosa, something kind of like that. Tavern Tier 4, we have another new dragon, Efficient Engineer. Battlecry, trigger a friendly minion's end of turn effect except Young Murk-Eye. Okay, so very good that they don't do Young Murk-Eye because you could probably get like some infinite loops with this. Um, I guess I'm trying to see if there's any end of turn effects right here. Not really. So the way that I kind of see this paying off, especially because I see Nightmane back, is let's check. So Undead haven't been announced yet. So, but assuming Kel'Thuzad's still around, what you can do is use this to proc a Kel'Thuzad on a Nightmane and get a really big payoff that way. Um, it's kind of interesting. There's not a lot of end of turn effects that have been confirmed right so far. I have Razor Gore's back, so that's going to be one. Nether Drake is back, so that's another. Yeah, those are the main ones. So, it has a little bit of payoff. I think the best one is going to be though getting the Nightbane procs. Outback Smolder. This is at the end of the turn get a 2/1 Smoldering. We already talked about Smolder Wing with the Gardener. This is another one that you can proc with the Engineer, I guess. Really, the best use for this I found was trying to just use the Smolder Wings to get a triple, and use that to get a 6 drop. I still think that's mainly going to be the play. Persistent Poet's still around. I think Persistent Poet, the main things with it that's relevant is it doesn't look like Amber Guardian is here. So it's going to be harder to give your minions. Well, I'd say that Nadina's back, so I guess there is a way to give your dragons Divine Shield that way. However, it's on 6 instead of 4. So I think Poet's going to be a lot harder to get those big payoffs. With its ability. If you're playing a hero power like Tamsin, obviously there's going to be a little bit more of a payoff with him, but uh, it's going to be a lot harder doing poet stuff without trinkets. Price Perma Drake, this is mainly just a stabilized unit. It gives you a lot of stats. Razor Gore, so it's a 1/2. I guess let's just say best case you have something like 5 dragons and a cycle spot. Um, so you have 5 dragons, Razorgore, and then 1 shop spot. You're gonna be getting something like 5/10 your first turn, which is like an okay stabilize. I normally you're only gonna be getting something like 4/8, probably if we're being a little more likely. So you would have something like 5/10 stats on your first turn. Honestly, like it's an okay unit. I remember dragons used to be like you got a super early Razorgore and this became like your huge minion. I don't see this being a huge minion right now. It's just there's been so much power creep in the cards. They're taking a minion that used to have a 5 cost effect and giving a 4, and I still don't think it's is good enough. Guzzle the Goop still around. General Dracovish, this just plays into the whole Smolderwing kind of synergies. Hunter of Gatherers is still around. This is kind of just like a payoff for having some type of buff effects. Nether Drake here, at the end of your turn, give your dragons +1 attack and upgrade this. I'm assuming what this means is every turn it gets 1 more attack. This is probably going to be a really good stabilized card, especially if something like Smuggler, because like it used to be like it only gave set attack. The fact that it's upgrading makes it a lot more relevant, especially if you have something like a Poet, if you have the Nadina going, if you have a Warp Wings, any type of things that actually pay off for this. I see this being okay. You might just use it for a couple turns. I don't see this being the kind of thing that you leave, a lot. Um, I guess what's relevant is you can proc it with the Efficient Engineer to give like 3 attack on its first turn, and that's definitely a bigger payoff. But I don't know, it's a stabilized unit. I don't see it being kind of like a build a comp around. Night being ignited, assuming KT's around, this is going to be busted. You just find ways to give it more attack, and then it transfers attack to other minion, and you have exponential scaling that way. Really, the best thing you can do is get like 2 of these, and then you have like one buff the other. You do like KT, Nightbane, 2 Nightbanes, and like Baron Rivendell, and you just give all your stats. And you keep just making the Nightbanes bigger and bigger, and then you play something like Warp Wing or Cleave or some type of like payoff for a ton of attack. Caligos, the first time they're giving it a buff, I still think it's not going to be good enough. Honestly, if they gave it 2-1, it would have been like probably really good. Just because like we already have Smuggler as a way to have like a payoff for health. Um, I guess with Bran you're getting 2-4, which I don't know. Like it's just kind of weird that like I don't know. They have some dragons that are buffing the attack and they give Caligos health as its buff. I just don't see it being good enough still. Nadina we talked about. Nadina giving 3 Divine Shields is going to be especially relevant with Poet. But I guess like I'm not seeing the payoff for dragons right now. I don't think there's enough ways for them to get enough exponential scaling, and this might just be the theme of without like I don't think you're ever gonna do a Caligos Nadina comp. I imagine like Nightbane is gonna be the main dragon comps, and you might use the Smolder Wings to try and triple into a like Kel'Thuzad or Caligos, and then make your dragon pivot from there of either playing the Nightbane Death Rattle comp or the Caligos Battlecry comp. Warp Ring's still around. This is going to be a payoff for something like Nightbane. And no other things to think about with the card. So cool, there's dragons. Once again, if you enjoy the content, please drop a like, leave a comment if you have any suggestions. Honestly, unfortunately, I think if you haven't made a comment on videos before this, it might be too late just because I pre-record a lot of these just to crank them out, in the time it's easier to just mass produce them. But leave a comment if you have any suggestions, and please subscribe if you're just looking for more content like this as we go through the new patch. So good luck on your guys' end of season climb. See ya. Bye.